something else important that I need to bring up is, you know, a lot of the tactics that have been used against targeted individuals, people being targeted with gang stalking, organized stalking, used to be called Rosette song, right? Those tactics are going mainstream. One of them is creating associations between seemingly benign things and other ideologies that are bad and negative and harmful and destructive. So, I'm trying to think of an example here. Like when it comes to gang stalking, maybe I don't know, someone is wearing red shoes and they run by you and they push you, okay? You notice them run off, okay? And then later someone walks by you, they're coming toward you, and they spit on the ground, they're also wearing red shoes, okay? And then maybe the next day someone, makes a comment, right? A really nasty comment about you or to you or something like that. Again, wearing red shoes. The point is they want to link in your mind this object, right? In this case, red shoes, with something negative, with the stalking campaign, with the really, which is terror, right? And then of course, with the associated emotions that go along with that, anger, rage, fear, right? So the next time you see someone wearing red shoes, they might not have to do anything at all, and you're going to feel that anger, that rage, and that fear. In fact, they might not even be part of it. It might just be an innocent person, but you're always going to wonder, is that person part of it? You're not going to know. That's creating an association, okay? And in reality, it's got nothing to do with the object. The object is neutral. But you've learned to associate that object with something bad. And so you react as if something bad is happening, right? Okay, let's talk about what the current administration is doing now, right? They're creating those associations. So let's say they'll take an object. It can be anything. It can be a red hat, right? And to that object, they tie racism, misogyny, forced submission, forced slavery, everything bad, hatred, every act of cruelty, okay, they put into that thing. But then they say that this thing is a good thing and everyone should like it. And if you don't, you're a terrorist, right? If you don't, why do you hate them, right? What happens? Okay. People who wear that object have been attacking you in every possible way, physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. They have deemed you less than human, really. They have suggested imprisonment and institutionalization and even lethal injection. I mean, literally, right? Killing. All of these things are being done by a specific group of people that wears that object. So what happens? Someone else walks by. He's wearing that thing, that object, which you now associate with everything bad, including threats to your life. So you react badly. And so what do? They stand back and say, but look at this, look how innocent this man was. He didn't do anything. He was simply stating his political views and showing support for America. And look, you're so angry, you're violent. Look at you, right? That reaction is exactly what they want from you so that they can do that. Okay, they want you to seem like the angry, violent one, and they want it to seem like it's unwarranted. Okay, they want to be able to stand back and smile as you're screaming and lashing out. And honestly, when they're the ones making the laws, and their laws are destroying your life and killing you, they can sit back calmly and smile as they kill you. But if you're going to survive, what's going to happen? You're going to start screaming. You're going to be lashing out. You're going to be crying. You're going to be the one who is acting out. And so now they can condemn you. And now they can prove whatever negative thing about you that they've been saying. Right? Imagine someone who's whipping someone. The man doing the whipping, he's not crying out in pain. He doesn't have to. He's not in pain. It's the person being whipped who's crying out in pain. Then they condemn you for crying out. And then they use that as an excuse to whip you even harder. It's sick. It's perverse. And the fact that they do all of this filth in the name of God, I'm not even religious, but that is absolute blasphemy. It is vile. It's the false church. That's what it is. They claim to follow Christ, but it's actually the Antichrist they're following. And they commit all of their atrocities in the name of God. They say they want to bring people to God, but the reality is the complete opposite. Because everything they're doing is turning people from God. Because they're creating so much unnecessary pain and suffering and death in the name of God. Right? That's what the psychopaths do. They do the opposite of what they say they're going to do. And they project and they reverse. Every bit of pain and suffering, every death they cause in the name of their God is an attempt to try to turn people away from God, as they then come back and complain about people not going to church anymore, and they complain about people not wanting God, and they blame it on evil when they're the evil ones, and they've always been. And that's the second part to this video, and it's very short, really. They're trying to create an association between the idea of God and pain and suffering and death, because the false church is the death cult. They will bring the maximum amount of pain and suffering and death to this world, right? For the same reason they want to take away all maternal health care. They want women to suffer and die again, because remember, before modern medicine, pregnancy and birth were deadly, and at the very least agonizing. And those who survived were mutilated, torn apart, their organs often just ripped open, right? Infants were often crushed. You know, the injuries for both mother and baby, horrible. Modern medicine has saved so many lives of mothers and babies. The false church wants to take that away. And they're already succeeding under the false guise of banning abortion. Now they're banning just modern medicine by linking everything to potential harm. So when in reality they're the ones causing the harm. And women are dying and babies are dying because they're not getting maternal health care. So, you know, even people bleeding out in hospitals because of miscarriages now, because the doctors are afraid to do anything because of these new laws. The same sick vermin who are creating this horrific situation, making pregnancy and birth a living hell for women and for babies too. They're turning around and saying, well, why don't women want to have babies? You know, they're the ones turning around blaming women for the declining birth rate, when in reality they're doing everything in their power to make motherhood as undesirable and horrific as they possibly can, starting from conception. So this is twisted. It is absolutely perverse. I mean, yes, some people are too stupid to realize what they're doing, but the puppet masters know exactly what they're doing. They say they want one thing, but in the end, their agenda is the opposite. Okay? Same with God. They say they want to bring people to God, but with all of the pain and the suffering and the death and the torture and the cruelty they're inflicting upon people in the name of God, in reality, very few people are stupid enough to think that that's going to bring people to God. In reality, that's going to turn people away from God. And the rulers at the top, they know that. They know that. Anyway, associations. Be careful. Not just talking to targeted individuals now. I'm talking to anyone who's being targeted by the government, right? This Christo-fascist false church that is terrorizing the world. Be careful, because they're trying to create associations, right? So that way their victims then, whoever they're targeting, will begin to show upset and fear and even lash out physically when it looks like the fascist is doing nothing at all and just standing there. Then they can say, see how innocent we are when you're the violent ones, right? And they've already created laws that say that are preventing the victims from fighting back against the regime, right? The regime will falsely accuse you of something horrible, use that to justify doing anything to you, whether it's having their agents physically assault you, or forcefully institutionalizing you, or dragging you off to a death camp. and they don't let you fight back, right? As soon as you try to fight back for your life, they say you're the violent one, and then they use that to justify taking you away, putting you away, or killing you. So just be careful. You know, learn more about associations and anchoring, and how they want you to react badly just by seeing one symbol, simply by attaching everything negative to it, which they call good, because these are evil monsters. They call good evil and evil good. They take a symbol, they call a symbol good, but in it, they fill everything bad, like every bit of oppression and bigotry and hatred and cruelty, and they call it all good. They don't call it those things. So that when people see that symbol, they associate it with everything bad, and they react negatively to it. And now the fascists are going to persecute you and prosecute you for acting negatively to the symbol that they say is a good thing, right? They'll even call you evil and against God, when in reality, this is a psyop. They set you up to react negatively to that very thing that they call good, just so that they can deem you evil and then take action against you. It is physical warfare, but it's also psychological warfare, and it's spiritual warfare. They want you to hate God. They want you to think that God hates you for doing the right thing, which the fascists call the wrong thing. Okay, they reverse, they project, they you know, and everything they say they want to do, they actually do the opposite of. Remember that. And as always, no matter how bad it gets, try to use self-control, because you know what they want is an outburst. And they're going to try to get it, so that they can condemn you for it once they get it. This is filthy sick. And I know it gets harder and harder to have any faith in a good, righteous God while this is going on, especially when they're using that God to do all of this, and then claiming that you're the ones who are against God for being against them, for doing what they're doing and committing their abuses. It is horrific. And I'm not religious. I'm not going to pretend to be, but, you know, this really can lead to a massive crisis of faith that goes beyond anything that... Just hang in there.